In the mid to late 1800s, America was booming with big businesses owned by the wealthy aristocrats of the period. This class of business owners were divided into two groups, the captains of industry and the robber barons. Captains of industry were known as heroes to the American business world, whereas robber barons were known for the merciless exploitation of their middle-class workers. All big businesses were vital to the health of the American economy, as they provided jobs for Americans and produced high-demand goods and services. However, as opposed to those run by captains of industry, businesses run by robber barons were characterized by harsh conditions and low wages. Cornelius Vanderbilt was one of these big business owners during his lifetime in the first half of the 19th century. He is characterized as a captain of industry due to his success with the steamboat and railroad industries. Vanderbilt's long-lived economic prosperity can be attributed to his early success within the steamboat industry. In the early 1800s, he spent his early years operating a simple ferry company that transported passengers between Staten Island and New York City. His operation was enlarged during the War of 1812, supplying government outposts throughout the city. Later in 1829, he began a steamboat company that monopolized the Hudson River. It would progress to provide transportation between Long Island, Providence, and Boston. Eventually, he formed a company that offered transport between New York City, New Orleans, and San Francisco, benefiting greatly from the 1849 California Gold Rush. Vanderbilt turned to railroads in the 1850s, gaining ownership of the New York and Harlem Railroad after buying up the majority of their stock. Rather than constructing his own railroads, Vanderbilt bought existing railroads, using horizontal integration to buy out other competitors. By 1873, Vanderbilt had control of the first rail service between New York City and Chicago. Vanderbilt also drove the construction of the Grand Central Depot in Manhattan in 1871, which around 30 years later would be replaced with today's Grand Central Terminal. During the Civil War, the Union struggled against Confederate warship Virginia. In desperate need of assistance, President Lincoln requested a ship from Vanderbilt. The Vanderbilt proved to be a valuable asset to the Union Navy, and Vanderbilt himself was later recognized by Congress with a gold medal. It can be argued that Vanderbilt was, in fact, a robber baron, as he became a controversial figure during the railroad strike of 1877. The upheaval occurred months after his death in January of that year. Employees of his various rail lines between Chicago and the East Coast protested against wage cuts, an important issue during the years following the Panic of 1873. Aggressive strikes erupted, igniting violent conflicts between state militias and angry railroad workers. Eventually, federal troops were able to break up the strikes. Despite his involvement in the Great Railroad Strike, Vanderbilt's status as a captain of industry can be maintained through the success of his railroad and steamboat companies. Cornelius Vanderbilt was a captain of industry due to his contributions to the American economy, as well as his support of the Union during the Civil War.